Somebody said a sentence over you once, and you have been living inside that sentence ever since. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's what people are talking about when they use a dramatic word like spell. And I want to strip the drama off it right now. Because the drama is what keeps you from seeing it. You're picturing candles and incantations, and something out of a movie. Put that down. What actually happened to you was quieter, and far more effective. Someone opened their mouth. Words came out. And some part of you, a part that was young, or tired, or hurt, or just not paying attention, said yes. That yes is the spell, not the sentence. The yes. Because words don't have authority over you until you agree with them. A curse spoken over a man who refuses it lands in the dirt, but a sentence you accept becomes furniture. It stops being an opinion somebody had about you on a bad Tuesday and becomes the room you live in. You stop noticing it the way you stop noticing the hum of your own refrigerator. It's just there. It's just how it is. It's just reality. And here's what most people miss: the sentence, almost never sounds evil. That's the craft of it. If it sounded evil, you'd have fought it. Instead, it sounded reasonable. It sounded like maturity. It sounded like somebody finally being honest with you. People like us don't get those kinds of opportunities. You've always been a little too much. Don't get your hopes up. That way, you won't be disappointed. You're the responsible one. Let your brother have the big dreams. Money's just not something our family is good at. Read those again, and notice something. Not one of them announces itself as a curse. Every one of them arrives dressed as wisdom. That's how it gets past the gate. You don't guard yourself against advice. You take notes on advice. So today, I'm going to show you the exact mechanism how a sentence becomes a world, why it feels like reality instead of an opinion, and what actually breaks it. And I'm going to tell you up front that the breaking is not complicated. It is hard, but it is not complicated. Most people never do it because they're waiting for a feeling. There is no feeling coming. There's a decision coming. Let's go to the moment. Scripture puts this on record with more precision than anything you'll read anywhere else. 12 men are sent to scout a land God has already promised. Already, the deed is signed before they cross the border. They're not going to evaluate whether the land is good. God settled that. They're going to look at what they've already been given. 40 days later, they come back carrying fruit so heavy it takes 2 men and a pole to carry 1 cluster of grapes. And 10 of them stand in front of the whole nation and say, "We can't." Now listen to the sentence they use. This is the verse I want burned into you. We were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Stop there. Sit in that for a second, because there's an entire life in that comma. They did not say the giants called us grasshoppers. They said we were grasshoppers in our own eyes, and then, because of that, we became grasshoppers in theirs. The self-image came first. The world's treatment of them came second. They walked into that valley already sentenced, and the valley simply agreed with the verdict they'd brought with them. You have been doing this for years and calling it being realistic. You walk into the interview already knowing you won't get it, and the man across the desk can smell it before you sit down. You go to the family gathering already knowing they won't take you seriously, and you shrink your voice to match the expectation. And then you drive home with the proof: see, they don't take me seriously. You pray already knowing the answer is probably no, and you barely wait around for it. You price yourself. You price yourself, and then you're bitter when the world pays what you asked. That's the spell. Not something a demon did to you last week. Something you agreed with in 1997 and have been renewing every morning since. I think about a woman I know in Pennsylvania who stood at her kitchen sink one night and heard herself say a sentence about her own son and stopped cold because it was her mother's sentence, word for word, in her mother's rhythm, and her mother had been gone 11 years. That's how these things travel. They don't stay in the person they were said to. They get handed down at sinks and dinner tables like a set of dishes nobody ever chose. I think about a man in Texas who opened a job posting on his phone at 6 in the morning, read the whole thing twice, felt something jump in his chest, and closed the tab. Never applied. And if you'd asked him why, he'd have given you a completely reasonable answer about timing and experience and the market. But the decision was made before he read a single word of that posting. It was made 24 years earlier by a man in a garage who told him to stop dreaming and learn a trade. He didn't get rejected. That's what I want you to catch. He got rejected by nobody. He administered the rejection himself, in his own truck, at 6 in the morning, on behalf of a man who has been dead for 9 years. That's what the spell does. It saves the world the trouble. And I need to be careful here, because there's a version of this teaching that's poison, and I won't hand it to you. I am not telling you the bills aren't real. They're real. I'm not telling you the diagnosis isn't real, or that if you just believe hard enough the lab report changes its mind. That's cruelty dressed up as faith, and I've watched it break people. Facts are facts. Denying them isn't faith, it's fantasy. And God has never once asked you to lie to yourself. Here's the difference, and it's everything. The fact is, the account is overdrawn. The spell is, I will always be the one who's behind. The fact is, the marriage ended. The spell is, I'm the kind of person people leave. The fact is, you were passed over. The spell is, they see what I really am. You see it? The fact is a photograph. The spell is a prophecy. Something happened to you, and while you were bleeding, somebody, sometimes somebody else, most often, you attached a permanent meaning to a temporary event. And that meaning has been running your decisions ever since, from underneath, where you can't argue with it. The giants in Canaan were also real. 10 men saw the giants and wrote a prophecy. 2 men saw the same giants and wrote a different one. Same land, same fruit, same enemies. 2 realities. There's a woman in Luke's gospel I can't stop thinking about, and I want to give her to you. She'd been bent double for 18 years. Scripture says a spirit of infirmity, and Jesus himself later calls it what it is she was bound. 18 years. And here's the detail that undoes me. She could not lift herself up. Her whole world for 18 years was the floor. Sandals, dust, the bottom 2 feet of every room she ever walked into. Now think about what 18 years of that does. It's not just her spine. After 18 years, she doesn't remember what faces look like from eye level. She's built a life at that height. She knows which stones in the street are loose. She's learned to identify her neighbors by their shoes. And if you'd asked her what the world is, she would have described a world that is genuinely, accurately, provably low. Because that's the only world her posture allowed her to see. That's not stupidity. That's not weak faith. That's what long-term agreement does. It doesn't just change what you believe. It changes what you're able to look at. And then a man walks into the synagogue on a Sabbath and does something almost violent in its simplicity. He doesn't ask her what she believes. He doesn't run her through a process. He calls her over and says one thing, "Woman, you are loosed." She straightens up in front of everybody. 18 years, undone in a sentence. And then pay attention, the religious men in the room got angry. They were furious that it happened on the wrong day. And Jesus turns on them with the line that should end the argument for the rest of your life. Ought not this woman be loosed from this bond? ought not. As in, this was never supposed to be permanent. As in, there was never a season where that bend was the will of God for her body. You've made peace with a bend that heaven never authorized. You've called it your personality. You've called it being realistic. You've called it knowing your limits. And Jesus is standing in the room, asking why anybody thought you were supposed to stay like that. Let me show you the other side of it, what it looks like, when heaven refuses to speak to the version of you that everyone else is looking at. There's a young man threshing wheat in a wine press. Understand what that means. Wheat is threshed on a hilltop, in the open wind. A wine press is a pit. He's down in a hole, doing the wrong job in the wrong place, hiding from raiders, working in secret because he's afraid. That is the objective, photographable fact of Gideon on that day. Anybody with eyes could confirm it. And the angel of the Lord sits down under the oak and says, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." To a man in a hole, hiding, and Gideon does exactly what you do. He argues. He says, "My clan is the poorest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." He recites his sentence. He's got it memorized, the poorest. The least you can hear that it's been said over him for years, probably at dinner tables, probably by people who loved him. But God never engages the argument. He never says, "You're right. Let's build from where you actually are." He just repeats the assignment. Go in this thy might. This might. The one you don't feel. The one you can't locate. The one that is nonetheless already in you. Sitting in a hole, threshing wheat in a winepress. Heaven does not address the man in the pit. Heaven addresses the man in the promise and waits for him to answer to that name. That's the fight. Every single day, two voices are naming you, and you don't get to be neutral. You get to answer to one of them. And I have to say the hardest part now, because if I skip it, I've wasted your time. The people most likely to keep you under the sentence are usually not enemies. They're the ones who knew you first. Jesus went home, his own town. And they said, "Is not this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother Mary? Aren't his brothers right here?" They had a file on him. And the text says something that should stop your heart. He could there do no mighty work, save that he laid his hands upon a few sick folk. The power didn't change. The town's agreement did. They had a version of him fixed in place, and they held it so tightly that the Son of God walked through his own hometown with limited access. Somebody in your life has a file on you. It's not always malice. Half the time it's love that stopped updating. It's a mother who still sees the kid who couldn't keep a job at 19. It's a brother who needs you to stay the mess so his story about the family holds together. It's a spouse who married the frightened version of you and got comfortable there. And you keep going back to those rooms, hoping to get permission. Hoping somebody says, "I see it now. Go ahead." That permission is not coming. Not because they're wicked, but because you're asking a photograph to describe your future. There's a moment, and I hope you're near it, where you realize the door has been unlocked the entire time. That's the part nobody wants to hear, so let me say it slowly. The room you've been living in has a door, and that door opens from the inside. It always did. There's no guard. There's no lock. There's a sentence you agreed with, and agreement is a hand, and the hand holding that door shut is yours. That's terrifying, and it's the best news you've had in years. Terrifying, because it means the delay had a name, and the name was yours. Best news, because if the hand is yours, nobody has to give you anything. Nobody has to apologize. Nobody has to finally see you. You can let go tonight. Now I want to introduce myself properly, because if you've come this far with me, you deserve to know who's talking. My name is George. I'm not here as somebody who studied this from a comfortable distance. I lived under a sentence for the better part of 2 decades, a sentence somebody said to me in a kitchen when I was 11 years old, 7 words long, and I could recite it right now with the exact tone of voice attached. I built a career under it. I chose smaller rooms under it. I turned down 2 things I was made for under it, and I told myself I was being wise. I was 51 years old before anybody helped me see the mechanism. And the day I saw it, I sat in my car and wept. Not from grief, but from the sheer waste of it. That's why I make these videos. Because somebody handed me the map late, and I'd rather hand it to you early. And if you're feeling something move in your chest right now, that's not the video. That's recognition. And recognition is the first crack in the wall. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrived, things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. Now let's talk about how it actually breaks. Because I promised you it wasn't complicated. And I meant it. It entered through your ears. It leaves through your mouth. That sounds simple to the point of insult, and it is the single thing most people refuse to do. The sentence over your life has never been said out loud by you, on purpose, in daylight. It's been running underneath everything for years, in the dark, unexamined, protected by the fact that you've never made it stand up and identify itself. So make it stand up. Say it out loud. Alone in your car, alone in the kitchen at 11 at night, wherever you can be honest. Say the actual sentence, not a polite summary of it. The real one, in the words it uses. I'm the one who always gets left. I'm not the kind of person that happens to. I ruin things eventually. I'm too old to start. God helps other people. Say it out loud and listen to how it sounds outside your head. Something happens in that moment. In the dark, it sounded like truth. Spoken in daylight, in your own voice, it sounds like what it is, somebody's opinion that you've been carrying like a court verdict. Half of its power was the darkness. Then name where it came from. Who said it? How old you were. What room you were in. Because a sentence with an address attached stops being reality and starts being an event. And events can be renounced. Then break the agreement out loud. Not a feeling. A statement. I agreed with that. I don't anymore. I break that agreement in the name of Jesus Christ. You will feel absolutely nothing when you say it. Say it anyway. Faith is not a mood. And then this is the part people skip. And skipping it is why they end up back where they started. Put something in the empty space. An empty room doesn't stay empty. If you evict a sentence and don't replace it, the old one moves back in by Friday. Because your mind will not tolerate a blank where a self-definition used to be. So go find a sentence from God about you. One line. And make it the thing you say when the old one shows up. Not a vague good feeling. A line. He calls you the head and not the tail. He says you are his workmanship, created for good works he prepared beforehand, meaning the work was assigned before you were qualified. He says no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Pick one. Learn it in your own voice. And when the old sentence knocks, and it will knock, probably around 3 in the morning, answer with the line, out loud, until the old one gets tired of hearing it. That's the whole method. It's not mystical. It's maintenance. And I want you to expect the resistance, so it doesn't scare you when it comes. The first week feels like lying. You'll say the line and a voice in the back of your head will say, "Who do you think you are?" And it will sound like your own voice, and it will sound reasonable, and it will use the word humble. That's not humility. Humility is agreeing with God about you. What you're feeling is a sentence defending its territory, and territory always fights hardest right before it's lost. And here's what happens next, which is the part that catches everybody off guard. Nothing external changes at first. The bank doesn't call. The door doesn't open on Tuesday. What changes is what you're able to see. There's a morning when Elisha's servant walks outside, and the whole city is surrounded horses, chariots. An army sent for one man. The young man panics, and Elisha says something that must have sounded insane. "They that be with us are more than they that be with them." There's nobody with them. It's two men and a wall. And Elisha prays one line, "Lord, open his eyes." And the young man looks again, and the mountain is full of horses and chariots of fire around them. Now understand, nothing arrived. Nothing was summoned. Not one chariot moved into position after that prayer. They were already there. They were there the whole time he was panicking. The only thing that changed was what he was permitted to see. That's what you're waiting on. You're not waiting on God to build something. You're waiting on your eyes to open on what he already stationed around you. The spell was never the absence of provision. The spell was a set of eyes that could only see the army. Which brings me to a man I want you to remember when you're tempted to think it's too late. He was one of the two. When the 10 came back with the grasshopper report, he stood up and said, "We are well able." And it cost him. He was outvoted, and the whole nation wandered 40 years because of a sentence he refused to sign. 45 years later, Caleb walks up to Joshua as an old man, 85 years old, and he says something I want you to hear the audacity of. He says, "I am as strong this day as I was in the day Moses sent me. My strength for war, both to go out and to come in, is the same. And then, give me this mountain. Not a valley, not a comfortable plot near the water with good soil, and no trouble. The mountain, the hill country where the giants were. The exact place that had terrified 10 grown men into 40 years of desert. 85 years old, asking for the hardest ground in the country. He could ask for it, because he had never once agreed with the report. For 45 years, while everybody around him lived and died under a sentence, he carried a different one. And the thing about not agreeing is that it doesn't age. 10 men were dead. The whole generation was buried in sand. And the man who refused the sentence was standing there at 85, asking for giants. You are not too old. You are agreement tired, which is a different thing, entirely. And it lifts faster than you think. So let me deal with the last part honestly, because the title of this video makes a promise, and I'm not going to slide past it. Break the spell and get everything you want. Here's what actually happens. You stop wanting most of it. Because the spell didn't just tell you that you couldn't have things. It told you what to want in the first place. It shrank your desires down until they'd fit in the room it built for you. It taught you to want the small thing, the safe thing, the thing you could get without being seen. And a lot of what you've been chasing all these years, you were only chasing because it was the largest thing you believed was available. When the sentence breaks, your wanting changes shape. You'll find yourself wanting things that would have embarrassed you 2 years ago. And here's the strange mercy in it. Those bigger things start coming to you easier than the small ones ever did. Because you're finally reaching for what you were built for, instead of dragging yourself toward what you settled for. The desire and the assignment finally line up, That's the everything. Not a warehouse of stuff. A life that stops fighting itself. That's what I want for you. Not a better version of the room. The door. Now here's what I want you to do, and I want you to be specific. Because vague never healed anybody. Go down to the comments and write the sentence. The actual one. The words, not a summary, and next to it, put who said it and how old you were when you heard it. That's it. 3 things. The sentence. The person. The age. I'm asking for the age on purpose. Because when you see it written down 9 years old something in, you finally understands that you have been taking life instructions from a room you were too small to walk out of. And then read the other comments. You're going to find your sentence in somebody else's handwriting, said by a different person in a different state, in a different decade. And when you see it happen, you'll know it was never a true thing about you. It was just a thing that gets said. And remember, everything I spoke about goes deeper inside the secret protocol. Pinned in the first comment. The 7 keys, the audiobook, and the awakening map are there waiting for you whenever you're ready to take the next step. One more thing before you go. Tonight, when the house gets quiet and the old sentence shows up the way it always does, don't argue with it. Don't fight it. You've been fighting it for 30 years, and it has never once lost a fight. Just notice your hand, the one that's been holding the door, and open it.